Hey everybody, this is Rob Archangel of Archangel Inc. and I am joined once again by Jordan Ring.
What's up,
Welcome
guys?
to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm good. Everybody, thanks for checking in on Archangel Inc. Live number 9. And we sent out a little video yesterday on Facebook letting people know and soliciting questions. And I'm going to try and do that on a regular basis. So check into the Archangel Inc. page on a rolling basis and let us know if you have thoughts, comments, questions, things you'd like us to address in future episodes. As mentioned before, we're always trying to incorporate user feedback, user information, the authors out there who are following us or prospective authors who are trying to learn a little bit about publishing. We're happy to assist as best we can. So all of that said, tonight we are talking about looking at a book launch campaign, a successful book launch campaign. It's still underway right now, but it's for our author, Cassie Sobelton. Big shout out to Cassie. Cassie, thanks for putting together a great case study for us and a really great book that I think is going to make a big impact and help Cassie reach some of her business goals. So before we start into that, Jordan, is there anything that you wanted to share, to start talking about, or open things up before we just dive in?
The only thing I was going to mention is we will add a link to Cassie's book. It's still 99 cents right now on Amazon. So definitely if you're joining us on this video and hearing some of her tactics, go and support her and pick that up. It's just $1. It's called the Employee Wellbeing Handbook. It's a great book. She's done a really good job putting it together. It's a really cool book about just work culture and having a different approach to that wellness in the work culture. It's really cool. Cool.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, everybody check out Cassie's book. So all of that said, excuse me, let's jump right in. So Jordan, Cassie is an Archangel Inc. client. You have your book launch and marketing campaign and, the things that you do for authors. So, talk about how you approached looking at hers. Did you do all of the things that you normally do? Did you do different things? I know that Cassie has some resources at her disposal and she's done some other things in the past, and just want to give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. With hers, we try to take every approach as unique as we can. When we get clients in, things are always changing on Amazon. Things that we used to do, we may not do anymore. And we're always try to focus on the things that are working for people. So that being said, it's always very customized. So with Cassie, it was very customized back and forth. What do you want? What do you expect from this launch? What do you want to do? That's what I would ask her. And then she would ask me questions. And then we kind of went back and forth and basically built a plan based on that. And I wanted to share, as far as we can jump right into this, Rob, the coolest thing that Cassie did that, it seems old school. And I've had people ask me before, hey, Jordan, what do you think of this? Should I host a book launch party? In my mind, I think that's kind of old fashioned. I don't know if that's necessarily still something that's great for, pushing books online. But Cassie did this. She actually did this for her first book and had a lot of success with that as well. Her first book was called Back to Balance. And I know she did this for that. And she also kind of just set it up for this. Now, she actually set a real live book launch party that I wish I could have attended. It would have been really cool. She's not within driving distance from me, but do wish that I could have attended that just to kind of see how it would work for myself. I would love to have done that. But yeah, I know it's a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah. So talk about that. So what happens in this book launch party? What do other people do? If it's any different than what Cassie's doing, from your understanding, what is Cassie doing with this party? For authors out there who are thinking about, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. What would that look like? Share whatever you know about it, if you would.
Yeah, I still think, people have asked me that question about book launch parties before. I've done it myself for my, I did that for Volcanic Momentum. I think one of the coolest parts about, and probably for me, the number one reason to do a book launch is just to be able to talk to your community about it, to be able to set something up where you're saying, hey, I'm an author, I have this. It's amazing what connections can come out of that. I've heard other authors pull connections from that, and I have as well. And it's just cool to be able to, communicate the fact that you're an author. Cool. So that's definitely, it's not something that's necessarily quantifiable unless you're building those connections while, you're counting them down. Oh, the book launch party, I got 5 connections, maybe not, but that's definitely an unquantifiable, it's a boon for doing a real live launch party. Cause I think it can feel very as an author, you're doing everything online, and I've experienced this myself before. You can feel very secluded and very isolated from, the real world. If your friends ask you what you do, I'm an author. I sell books on Amazon. Okay, and then it's hard to kind of bridge that gap. People don't really understand like what you do. So for that reason, having one is really cool. But in Cassie's case, she actually went beyond that as well and had people purchase the book as soon as they came in. I think that was kind of like their, ticket in a way to get into the party. Which I thought was cool because, the book was $1 on Amazon. Now they had the option of buying the paperback if they wanted to, which is great. But just for $1, hey, can you buy my book? We're celebrating this. Can you bump it up in the rankings? And it's a really great way to just get some initial sales. Now we've talked before, one-day sales, is not necessarily the best way to sustain the Amazon algorithm. It's a great way to give you an initial boost. There's got to be some other systems in place. Now we have ads running for her. She's doing a lot of campaigning herself. She has a lot going on beyond just that one day. But if you're looking at a big sales day, as far as things that I could recommend now, like what she did is almost a much better way to do it than to use some of these the old-fashioned email lists. Those cheap books or free book email lists, they still work, but they don't work anywhere near as well as they used to. I don't hear a lot of chatter about them these days in any of the groups. Even when our clients ask us, I always say yes. It's worth it to do. Buck Books is still one that we still recommend. That's one that authors still do. But a lot of the other ones, they just have, even if they have, let's say 50,000 email subscribers, maybe only 10% of those are opening their emails, and then how many of them are actually clicking and choosing to buy a book from there. Now, there's obviously some good ones out there, I'm sure, that I haven't tried myself. It's definitely, if you're building email lists and you're engaging your fans, yes, you can still provide a really good service. I'm just saying, for the most part, we've seen, and I've heard from other authors too, it's not as effective as a strategy as it used to be.
So thank you for sharing all that, Jordan. So when you're
I'm sorry, Rob.
No, hey, that's awesome. So yeah, when you're looking at doing one of these kind of one day, like tight bunch of sale kind of situations, the goal there, I think, and we may have mentioned this before, really is to catapult you up so that you're more visible. And then from there, hopefully everything else that you're doing in terms of your sales page, good quality cover, having some good book reviews, being classified in the right sorts of categories and kind of speaking to your target demographic. All of those things can do the heavy lifting from that point. So you're kind of sending a flare out into the Amazon world. Hey, everybody, look at me. And then you kind of look up and then you see if there are fireworks there. You see if there's something worth looking at, or if it's just kind of one and done and all right, whatever, that's not of particular import. Wanted to make a quick side note here. Barbara, thanks for stopping in. Barbara Catlin, visiting us on YouTube. Feel free to share any thoughts or comments, Barbara, if you have any, but we appreciate you tuning in, even if you don't have any thoughts or comments for the moment. So, okay. So one of the advantages too, it sounds like, you have this network, you are building it up. When you have this in-person kind of exchange, there's also the opportunity to kind of, practice your pitch, I would imagine, in a way like, hey, what's my 30-second, version of this book? How am I going to market it? Now, Cassie's really good at this. She does a lot of speaking engagements. She actually shared with us subsequent to this that this has increased the number of opportunities that inquiries that she's getting for speaking opportunities and, working with organizations, because that's, kind of her focus. That's the focus for business, corporate wellness and that kind of arena. And, but it gives you a chance to do that. And then also to kind of affirm the network you already have, people who are already there, who are engaged, who know you, that want to come out and support you. Maybe they bring a friend or a couple of friends and, kind of give you a chance to expand that network. I was just listening to a podcast earlier from, again, Hassan Osman, really good podcast, writer on the side. And one of his guests was talking about this idea of friend of a friend networking, that when people think of networking, often they think of, okay, I'm going to go out to these conferences, I'm going to go into these big events and basically kind of have these cold call connections. And you can do that, certainly. But the thing that people aren't necessarily thinking about or maximizing are the friend of a friend connection. So the people that are kind of in your loose network, who you've had business relationships with before, who you are in contact with periodically, it's a good idea to just keep in touch with them. And then also, hey, by the way, I've been working on this thing. I thought you might be interested. If you know anybody who's, in that arena, or who might have any questions about that, or might have any interest in this, feel free to put me in touch with them, or put them in touch with me, or that kind of thing. Because a lot of us have connections, there's the close family connections, and then sort of the, friend connections, and then it widens out and becomes looser and looser. But the people who really do well in networking, as I think this author would suggest, are those who don't let those soft connections sort of wither and step aside.
Yeah.
And so, you're continually refreshing it. Just go. It could be as simple as every once in a while, every month, every 3 months, look through your Rolodex, look through your contact list on your cell phone. Hey, who haven't I spoken to in the last little while? Just send a quick text, a quick email, a quick phone call. Hey man, just thinking of you, wanted to check in, hope all is well. How's business doing? Leave it open-ended, perhaps, give them an opportunity to engage, but build those connections. Anyway, bringing it back to Cassie, having an opportunity like this gives your core friends and followers and connections a chance to engage with you, to get something back. Maybe the people who are attending know her through regular social events, or maybe they're just kind of close professional contacts, and they don't have as much opportunity to engage with her on a recurring basis. But maybe they bring some of their friends and friends of friends, and that can help expand that network as well. Especially for the kinds of gigs that she's doing, speaking engagements and hosting seminars and building on top of that. So a couple of thoughts that I wanted to share on that.
Cool. And I had a thought off that too, and I don't want to go too far down this tangent, because I think this could potentially be a whole nother video in and of itself. But as you were saying that, I thought about reaching out to people, through gratitude cards. And I think a great book on that subject is actually another one of our authors, Scott Colby, that I just wrote down. We'll put a link to that too.
Cool.
In there, he has The Grateful Entrepreneur. He talks all about, basically the lost art of sending cards. And I've actually taken that practice on myself and sent cards to people. I think it's a great thing to do. It's hard to do consistently, but if you think about it, we're getting emails and we're getting online notifications. Right. How many of us get letters in the mail from people? It's a very uncommon thing, especially if you're working in business. So I was just thinking that as far as your, keeping up with connections, it's something I think I may even mention as a resource for Cassie too. Hey, did you make sure you send the people that came to your party, just thank you notes and say, thank you for being here. Thank you for purchasing my book. And how much those kind of connections can, not just work for you, but work for the community as a whole. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, one of the things, and again, shout out to Scott. Scott, when we started working together, we had our intro call, and he sent, I forget if it was a book or something of his that he liked and recommended, and he said, basically, hey Rob, looking forward to this project together. Appreciate everything that you guys have to offer, and just something physical in the mail, with a handwritten note. I mean, it was really meaningful and noteworthy, partly, as you mentioned, because of its infrequency. We don't necessarily think about doing that all that often. I've been doing that.
That's so cool that he did that. I don't think I knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's living it. That's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I've tried to make a habit of over the last several years since Archangel Inc.'s been in business. Send out yearly, holiday, New Year's cards. Hey, anybody that we've worked with, whether it's a client or, a team member.
You do this for us. I've gotten your cards. So I'll just say Rob does this.
Right.
He lives it.
And it's a good way too, a good practice, for myself, my own sort of gratitude practice. Hey, this has been really cool. I'm really excited to work with this person. We appreciate that you trust us. We appreciate that you've come back to us. I mean, we're fortunate that a lot of our business is repeat business. People who have one book and then go on to publish subsequent books, like Cassie, and just maintaining that network. And doing it once a year or so around holiday time feels good to me. It feels right to me. It also is that kind of New Year time, whatever your your sentiment is, or whatever you celebrate or anything like that. New year is often, at least from a business perspective, okay, hey, let's set some goals. Let's see if there's something that we can accomplish going forward. And it's a good way to remind them, hey, that's right. I've been meaning to reach back out to you. And, so there are those immediate or those potential business benefits, but also, just the sort of karma benefits and the energetic benefits of keeping in touch with people and building those networks and, keeping people in mind, seeing what you can do for them and, helping them know that you're available to assist if there's something that you might be able to help with.
Yeah. And if you're good with that, I want to jump in a little bit more to what we did for Cassie's launch. So I think another great thing that she did is she did a lot of work on her own with doing the stuff that she knows how to do, like doing the party. And we went back and forth about that. She used me for just feedback and what do you think about this? And I just think that's a great way to, when you're bringing someone on to, for her to bring us on to have us help with, all the stuff for the book, just use us for our knowledge and let us do what we do. And then just go from there, and she put so much work in and so much time, and it's showing with her launch. And I think that's just really cool. But
right.
That's another aside there. I wanted to mention something else that we did that is something newer that I've been doing that's been good to do for all books is you can put your book into up to 10 categories on Amazon. You can do that both for Kindle and print books. And that's something that I know, again, we've mentioned Dave Chesson in the past. Dave Chesson has a Kindlepreneur, has an article about this, but it's actually, I thought it was complicated to do. I think you used to have to do it. It used to be a little bit more complicated than it is. You can actually go into your KDP account. So if you have a book right now, you can go in and you can actually email Amazon and say, actually, I want my book added to up to 10 categories that you can choose. And definitely recommend doing this because when you go and upload your book, you can only put it in 2. That's it. Right. You put it in 2 categories. So pick some competitive categories, pick some, some lower ones that you may be able to get into that fit with your book, and then pick some competitive ones too, because you never know. And make sure you're picking categories that your book actually fits in. But yeah, you can put it in up to 10, and definitely it's worth doing that. So you can go on your KDP account, you go to help, and then then Amazon actually you go to update book categories, and they have a pre-filled out email that pops up, and you just have to fill it out. It's really not complicated at all. You just have to put either your ISBN or you have to put the ASIN. You have to, I think you may have to do 2 separate emails for each edition. Not 100% sure on that. I think we've done it in the past where we've just done separate emails for each one because the categories are completely different. So the categories for Kindle are actually totally different than print books. So you do have to go in and you have to pick 10 for the print and you have to pick 10 for the Kindle. I don't know. I don't understand. They're both books. I don't know why there's different categories, but it does get a little complicated there.
The only reason I can think of is I know that with print editions, there are the Library of Congress categories that you kind of select. And, you can sort of assign it to big general headings. I wonder if it's an offshoot of that, whereas Amazon Kindle, that's their own proprietary ecosystem. And so they can set it to whatever categories intuitively they determine makes sense. I don't know if that's actually true, but it seems conceivable anyway, plausible enough.
So that's not something we've always done, Rob, but it's definitely something I've been doing recently. I've done it for my own books as well. So it's definitely just a valuable, tip as far as just getting it out there more on Amazon. And again, you're doing things that not every other author is doing. It's that little, we talked about this, I know in a previous video, that little bit extra, whatever you can do to put yourself just a little bit higher up than, how many other authors, at least, millions. I don't know how many, say millions of books get uploaded on Amazon, I think a day. I mean, it's a lot. Yeah. Maybe it's not millions a day. Maybe there's a million authors out there. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well,
it's a lot.
there are definitely millions of titles. And I would say, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of authors. I mean, some of them are going to be like the folks we talked about in the no content books where they're putting out, hundreds a day. So, those people are the 1% of, title holders, I guess.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, I'm sure there are tens of thousands of authors on Amazon, and so you want to distinguish yourself. That's always the goal. What are you bringing that's unique, that's distinctive, that is going to be worth somebody putting their time and energy and money into your production? You want to keep that in mind and bring that to them to the best extent that you can.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So Cassie, starts working with you, talk about other, anything else book launch related that you would ordinarily do. Are you guys doing ads? Are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that and anything else on that front that might be worth looking into.
Yeah, I think it's always worth mentioning again, just the idea of getting that foundation right. So making sure that, obviously book cover is good, book title is good, the sales copy is, as good as you can get it. It's always worth mentioning that because that is the most important part of marketing, making sure that sales page is good to go.
Right. Like you've said before, you want to, when you send somebody over to the page, you don't want to lose them. You want to have everything tweaked out and maximized as possible, because getting their eyeballs onto that page isn't free. There's no guarantee that you can do it. And if you are able to make that happen, generate whatever energy and effort is necessary to bring them to there, then you don't want to have a lackluster page that's going to cause them to click away and forget about you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, like learning from mistakes and formatting, we've talked about that. I mean, I've learned from a lot of mistakes that I've made when launching books. My first couple that I put up there, like my sales pages weren't maximized. I didn't really. If someone asked me, Jordan, what are conversions? I'd have been like, I don't know what that word means. Like, I was not an expert at all in that. This is only stuff that I've realized, through working with clients and obviously through doing, my own recent book launches and just how important that is to have that platform and a base. But yes, we made sure that platform and base was good to go, that the sales page was all set. We are running ads, Amazon ads. That's a very important consideration to not only do for the launch, but if you can, and if they're profitable, keep them running and just keep logging in, keep tweaking them, keep working at those. Because as far as from our experience, places to work and put your time and also put your money, it's one of the best places right now. And who knows, that may change in a year or two. If Amazon starts charging even more for the ads, it's going to be hard to compete as far as books go, because, as indie authors, we generally don't price our books maybe at the same price that, the more traditional publishing companies will, because we're trying to undercut them, and we're trying to do the best we can to be in that and also be competitive. Yeah.
You try to exist within the margins, basically, because of the significant overhead that traditional publishing houses typically have. You can undercut them in price, but still make more per unit sold. But it sounds like with the change in in ads and becoming more competitive, more highly used, everybody's kind of fighting for that margin space, and so you just there's that negotiation. You're trying to figure out, okay, what's the right balance? How much do I spend so that I don't eat away all of my profits? Or if I am eating close to all of my profits, am I getting the return in other ways that I'm looking for?
Yep. And again, it's so worth it to do the ads because you're getting your own data. You're also getting sales of people that are looking at similar books. And that, I mean, the more sales you get, the more Amazon sees the sales, they see the conversions on your page. The more that you can do to tell Amazon that your book is selling, the more they're going to be like, hey, I want a piece of that. I want more of that. And then, they'll potentially, do some marketing on your behalf. Now, I think that honestly happens less and less, that Amazon will take over and their train will kind of start for you. But you still want to do everything you can because you're utilizing the platform. You want to do everything you can to get on their good side and sell as many as you can, so that hopefully they'll start displaying it in their new releases. Maybe you'll hit a jackpot and they'll send an email out to their massive list and say, hey, this is a new book. Check this out. I mean, I know authors have, have come into some of our groups before and been like, hey, Amazon emailed me with this like great pitch of like putting me in their like newsletter and stuff. And that's like fantastic. That's like, you see that, it's like, that's cool. And that doesn't happen every day. But the better your book is, the better the cover is, the more sales it has, the more professional it looks overall. That's how you're going to, create those chances. I think, I've actually wrote about this in my books before, the idea, and this might be getting a little off topic again, Rob, but that's okay. I think, just the idea of creating your own serendipity. You don't want to just wait for something to happen. Because sure, things can happen. You could get really lucky and your book could just, it may not even look good and it could sell a ton of copies. I mean, there are books out there right now, we talked about this too, that aren't necessarily very good, but people are buying them. That could be you. But is that likely? Or is it more likely that if you put in a really good product, that you're going to just give yourself a higher chance at success down the road? Maybe it's not even success within Amazon. maybe you go on to be a public speaker and you have this book that you can sell to people. I mean, I think you could use any example you want, but the better your content is, the better you're just going to do. And it's so important, and it's hard to quantify, but it's important.
Yeah. I mean, we're working with imperfect information. We don't have the full picture of Amazon sales. We don't have the full picture of, independent author sales and, not just sales from their book, but sales from other things that they offer. How much is an email opt-in worth to them? Do they have a way to monetize that? I mean, all of this stuff, there are so many different variables, but like you said, why handicap yourself in any way if you don't have to? Why put yourself in a position where you are putting out something that is below your capacity, below your potential, and potentially losing sales? It's hard enough to get any sales. It's hard enough to get any traction or any following. You want to do everything right to make that happen. Don't trip over yourself and, tie your shoelaces together so you can't really run.
Yep.
Cool.
You got it.
All right. Good deal. So, did you have other things that you wanted to share on Cassie's campaign, or any aspect of that?
I think that was all I really wanted to cover on that one.
Cool.
Did you want to, and you're probably you want to jump into that question we got?
Yeah. So
I think that kind of relates because we're kind of leading, into that.
We are. So let me pull the question up. So this was a question from author Amelia Griggs, who reached out to us via our email list, and feel free to sign up to our email list. And, she has
we'll put a link to our free report in the email as well that you can sign up.
Exactly. And so Amelia mentions, she has 2-book series, 3 books in each, in different genres. The Amazon series pages are really helping in her case. So that's great. Congrats, cool. Amelia. She's building a following, keeping active on social media, hasn't done much with Amazon ads, but has been experimenting with Pinterest ads and Facebook ads. And the specific question that she wanted to offer was, do you have any recommendations for post-book launch strategies? So, like you mentioned, Jordan, we're kind of jumping into this, but what are your initial thoughts on post-book launch strategies?
I just think it's such a great question because, you get to this point where you launch a book and then it's easy to let the momentum kind of sag because you're like, okay. And we talked before too, because you can easily let the momentum kind of stop when you haven't even launched the book yet, because it takes so much time and effort to get a book out there.
Right.
And then let alone to think of, okay, I just launched my book, now what? And I think it's just I think it's important to, take a step away. I think that's a first step. It doesn't have to be months where you're taking steps away, but even it's just like a week. Hey, I'm not going to push for this anymore. For this week, I'm going to maybe just take a step back, see how it did, what worked. I mean, it's so important to take that time and reflect.
Right.
And then you can use that to, gain knowledge for your next book launches. But also, it's just, what am I doing right now that is worth my time? Am I staying too busy doing the things that aren't working, or should I try to jump into maybe the 20% of what is pushing me along the best and do more of that? And I think that's just going to be different for every author and every book. I mean, I hate giving that it depends, but it really does. It depends on your unique situation. I mean, are you using your book to primarily get email subscribers in and then sell them something else and provide value in that way toward a course, or maybe you're selling a PDF on your site? I mean, I think those are all good questions to ask in specific situations, but I think it's always worth it to take a step back and see, where you're at. I mean, we talked about Amazon ads before. I think that's, if you aren't doing Amazon ads, it's definitely something important to look into and try. Some authors have not had success with it, and it depends, because sometimes Amazon is not going to like certain books. And we say but it just means they're not gonna display
promote them organically, cross-reference them, with other books that are similar to it.
Yep, you got it. But it's definitely worth attempting, at least for right now, to jump into. I mean, there are so many different strategies you could do, but taking a step back and reflecting would definitely be the number one thing I recommend. And then number 2 would be to continue writing, whether that was continue writing books. Or continue writing on your blog. Maybe you're posting on a site like Medium regularly. I think just being somewhere consistently is really good. You definitely don't want to launch a book and then completely drop off the radar, because who knows, you could get people coming in like, hey, I really like this book, go to their site, and then it hasn't been updated in 2 years. They're not necessarily going to stick around. Right. So just be in it for the long haul and be ready just to keep working it.
Yeah, no, I think those are good points. So, yeah, my initial thoughts on post book launch campaign would be, overlapping with yours. Okay, what worked, or were there any
Yeah.
really successful ad campaigns? If so, maybe that's something you want to do more of. If there are certain keywords or topics that sort of generated interest, cool. Maybe that's a source for additional content. Maybe you're writing a book about cryptocurrency, and some particular string of words is really important. Like, okay, well, maybe there's an interest in this. People are clicking through and buying it, and maybe that's an area of focus. Maybe I want to put up a blog post about that, or start drafting a chapter for a subsequent book. Another thing that, again, overlapping with what you were talking about, what's your goal? Reflect on what your intention was for writing the book to begin with. Are you interested in mostly sales? Are you interested in primarily those email followers? Are you interested in driving people over to purchase a product, or to network with you for a high value service that you offer? And then assess, okay, how has this been doing? And it's tough as you get into the higher value goods and services. You're going generally to have fewer opt-ins, fewer buy-ins. And so it may take a little while to have enough of a adequate sample size to know if something's working or not. It might take 100 click-throughs to get somebody to buy your $500 course, or $300 an hour consultation. And that might be great. Then you just, and it might be a steady, every 100 people you get to buy the book are one out of that, one of those is going to do that. And you might think, okay, that's great. That's enough value for me to do that. But if you interrupt something, when you're at 50 or 75 before you get that first one, then you don't necessarily know. So, part of it is having some patience, thinking about ahead of time what that would look like, how much you're willing to spend, how much you're willing to invest, how long of a track record you are willing to let establish itself before you make any subsequent decisions. So, all of that, so once you've done all of that, again, just double down on your goal, whatever it is. Okay, well, I want to just keep producing more books. I think I want a bigger library. I want to have enough, book sale income directly, to cover, X goal, month to month, or annually, or whatever, and keep plugging away at that. And maybe that means, it's not, 2 books or 4 books or 6 books, but it's going to take a dozen books to get there. And you may find over time that those additional books will help to generate revenue on the older ones. Periodically you can go back, update, previous content. If you're doing something particularly nonfiction, second edition, new edition, updated, information as things change, as they often do in many nonfiction arenas. Not everything that people put out is going to be evergreen and timeless. So, okay, what's like, for example, in on Amelia's page, she talks about technology, Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, Word. Microsoft periodically releases new versions of those programs, and so you want to have cutting edge information to the extent that you can. Get yourself familiar with it, and continually renew your status as an expert, as someone of importance and note in your arena, because that's where that credibility comes in. And you want to make sure that you're not just kind of sitting on your laurels from something that you did, a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago, whatever, and not learning and growing. So, those are a couple of thoughts on post-book launch strategy. Just continuing to experiment, continuing to create, continuing to assess and vision and brainstorm what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, and being willing to shift and adapt and accept feedback from your current efforts to improve upon your future efforts.
And Rob, I think that's great that you said that at the end, because that was the only other thing I was thinking, is just recognizing that the entire thing is a process, and don't beat yourself up depending on results or where you're at right now, because we're all in that stage of a process wherever we are at with growing our business and growing our author platform. You don't beat yourself up if it didn't go exactly as you hoped it would.
Right.
Just do the thing, do the reflecting, and see where you can move forward tomorrow.
Yep. No, great thoughts. I'm comfortable there. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share on this topic?
No, I didn't. I think we covered it pretty well, without going into the super specifics of specific situation and specific niches. I think we covered the aerial view of that pretty nicely, I think.
Right.
But if you guys have any questions, definitely, hit us up. We're happy to address those in later videos.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, in future videos. Also, if you want, it's very specific, individualized questions, or have individualized questions for us, then we do offer that free consult. So feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to share. But yeah, big picture, Cassie had a number of things going for her. She had that in-person book launch campaign where the entry fee of sorts for the party was purchasing a copy of her book. Really cool, and it's nice too because it gets around sort of Amazon's issues. It's not one IP address, purchasing it. People are buying it on their phones or their tablets or wherever. So, these are people who are already customers, and you're just saying, hey, there's a lot of interest. Amazon, pay attention. This is really this is a book of importance. And then she's also been utilizing her press release a bit more. So, not every author uses that, but authors who are able to, who have, local media outlets and so forth, that they can kind of pass information onto and share and be the topic for stories or, local newscasts or anything like that. That can be really cool. And then aside from that, the general launch stuff, making sure everything is lined up right, that you have a good cover, good book description, good quality reviews, and then also that you have, if you have the budget for it, some sort of ad campaign set up so you can kind of test some things and really tweak it out and maximize, see what the best performers are, so that when you have time for that official launch, when you have that big party and you're trying to send other traffic that way, that that page is looking as good as it can look, and you're not losing anybody because you accidentally overlook something.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Good deal. Well, folks, thanks again for tuning in. And this is Archangel Inc. Live number 9. We'll be back next week. Oh, wait, hold on. One question, if you got a moment, Jordan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Barbara, thanks for leaving a comment here. If you are going to start writing short reads, would it be a good strategy to publish, say, the first 3 or 4 about 1 week apart? Of course, have a free book to get people to sign up for the newsletter. Yeah, sure. I mean, my first thought is if you have several of them at once, sometimes it makes sense to kind of keep it on reserve and then give people multiple opportunities to find you, give people multiple avenues to become engaged. I don't know if these short reads are all necessarily sequential. So in that case, you would want to opt into that free news, or use that opt-in on your free newsletter to get them to purchase the subsequent volumes. But sometimes short reads can be on distinct topics that, maybe overlap, but aren't necessarily in sequence. Like, for example, a few years ago, Matt Stone, the co-founder of Archangel Inc., who has since gone on to other projects, but he was writing about health. And so we had this idea to have these, big overarching book on metabolism, and then maybe smaller books on fasting, and a smaller book on specific nutrients, and smaller book on sugar, and and so forth. So those could be potentially short reads that all feed into one another. And, that could be one strategy that you can employ. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think the only thing I was thinking with that is I was just thinking of the suggestion, and the thing that Amelia Grigg said was working for her is to have her books in a series. So I think you may already be doing that with Kindle short reads, putting them in a series, but definitely something to consider there, making sure that you do that when you're editing your books, data as you publish it within Amazon. Make sure you select and type in your series name, and then it will show up there. And that's a good way to kind of interlink the books together. But
yeah,
that was just not necessarily answering your question. That was just another thought.
Another thought. Yeah,
I think so, Rob, what you covered there was good.
Yeah, but I think it's great to share. If it is a part of a series, then serializing it and using Amazon's opportunity to do that could be really helpful. The other thing that I wanted to mention, if you have several of them all out at once, it might make sense to, again, kind of have some in the backstock, because if somebody finds you, you want to give them an opportunity to download and purchase other ones. You don't necessarily have to have 100, sitting around and waiting and published all at once, but having a few can be helpful. I read this recommendation as well for blogging. There's a blogger who was talking about, hey, they had set a goal. They wanted to put out 1 post a week, for their first year. And they knew that with their schedule being what it was, it might be kind of difficult in stretches. And so they had the first, month and a half or 2 months worth of posts. They had 8 posts, lined up, queued up, ready to go. And, they released them, in sequence. And then I guess if something topical came up, you can always jump in and adjust the order of it and talk about something new. But they always had something on cue so that there was consistency. And, that was really helpful for blogging and potentially for short reads, depending on your demographic and the reading patterns of the people that are interested in the sort of content you're producing. That might be a good idea as well. Just have a few of those ready all at once. And then, continue to produce them on a rolling basis.
And Rob, just to add on to that too, I think something really important to consider, especially with if you're going to be doing short reads, make sure that there is that call to action. Make sure it's very clear where you're sending them. So you're writing a short book. What's the action at the end of the first book? Okay, maybe it's just to read the second. That's great. What's the action at the end of that third one? What do you want them to do at the end of the fourth one?
Right.
Having that, when you're publishing books, you kind of have, you can always update them, but you have your links out there. So whatever links are your call to action, that's where people are going to go for that book until you change it. So just be thinking about that. Maybe it's as simple as that. You're just having a consistent blog series. And at the end of the book, you say, hey, if you want more of this, go to this consistent thing that I'm going to be posting on my blog about this subject. And maybe it's just a page you have that you are constantly updating, that you have people engaging with. That's just an idea there. But just be very cognizant of, even if you're doing the short reads, it's something you can get out quick, but just be cognizant of the platform building process that goes into that, because it can get tricky to, I don't know where I'm going to want to send people. And that's fine, because like we said, you can always change it, but just be brainstorming that and thinking about the action steps post, once they finish reading.
Right. And one thing I would mention too is if you're directing people back over to something, if you direct them over to your own website, theoretically you have easier and faster control and the ability to update on your own website than Amazon.
Yes.
Amazon at the very least is going to take several hours to review an updated version of your interior files. So if you want to change a link or something there, and it could take longer, who knows? Maybe there's an issue that comes up. I mean, we've had it happen in the past before. One of our authors made their book available as part of a collection, and they had it initially published under their own private account. And then it was put into this collection, and then they re-uploaded to their account. They made some changes, and it was denied. They said, "Sorry, there's this exists elsewhere. This is a reproduction of existing material. Please verify that you have the rights to publish it." So we had to go and track back the information. Say, look, we originally published it on this date. Here's here's the verification information that you need. And that delayed it. I think we got it turned around in a day or two, but that's a day or two. Yeah. Where you have something out there that is not your most current work. And that's another headache that you have to deal with. So, having something over on your website is really good. That's why I'm a big fan on Archangel Inc. site of using these redirects. So if an author, eventually changes their website, I direct somebody over to Archangel Inc.'s YouTube page, for example. archangelinc.com/YouTube actually sends people over to youtube.com/ a whole string of alphanumerics that are, for our page. And that potentially could change at some point. Or, maybe archangelinc.com/YouTube later on, YouTube branches off and there's like 2 different versions of YouTube or something. But, having it under my own page, my own website with our own in-house redirect makes it so that I have that much more control over it. So something to keep in mind as well as your platform building. One last thought that I wanted to share: when you're thinking about that back matter content and that call to action, be aware of hyperlink fatigue. This is a topic that we've addressed elsewhere. People have this tendency to want to click on a hyperlink, and that makes sense. But if you have 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 of them, this isn't a blog post. If you have somebody in your Kindle book and you're sending them off of your Kindle book, you don't know if you're getting them back. If you're sending them to another one of your own blog posts, then that's great, because that's all screen time on your website, and that's beneficial for you. And hopefully you have your website optimized so that people know what you offer and they're able to remain in contact, and there's some benefit for that. But if you're directing people outside with Kindle, then they may not come back, and they may not find the most important thing. You might give them 5 or 6 links before the 7th link is the one that you really want them to click on, but you've just inundated them with a bunch of other ones, and they might not ever get to it. So I encourage authors always to use them judiciously and sparingly. As few outside links as possible within your digital edition is my recommendation for all of those reasons.
Yeah. So 2 things with that, Rob. I loved where you were going with that. So one recommendation too I would have on that is some authors they just do their site, whatever their site is, / your book title, or just one word from your book, and then resources. Right. And then that you can push people to that for the end. So if they are leaving your book, it's to your website and it's to your list of resources. And then maybe from there, they're going into some other resources. So definitely, what Rob said there, definitely agree with that. You don't want it to be exhaustive. Again, learning from my mistakes. I did that with a lot of my first books. I remember Christy, our publishing coordinator, was like, "Whoa, Jordan, why do you have so many links? Like, you're not writing a blog post." And I'm like, "No, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. There's so much you just don't think about." But and then 2, definitely agree with the redirect link in your book. You can do the redirect link for pushing people to give your book an Amazon review, or sign up for something on your list. Sign up for that extra thing. So for example, I think my bonus for my most recent book is just jamring.com/balance bonus or something I did for that. The benefit, the cool thing with that is I can go in and change that bonus whenever I want. I kept the wording very generic because I'm like, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to want to keep what I have right now. So using your own links, having that structure from your own base, I don't have to change a thing within the book. I don't have to go and update the book. I don't have to deal with all that hassle. I can just go in and change the redirect on my site, which is just a couple seconds to do that. So it's definitely, that's another beneficial thing to just, again, building the platform within your book. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that stuff is like super important to
little tricks of the trade, things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. Hyperlinks don't have to be fixed, and they're sort of fixed when they're in Amazon just because there is a slower turnover. But when you have that opportunity for a redirect on your own self-controlled website, then make use of it, because can be very advantageous in many cases. Barbara says, "Thanks. Love the reminder about call to action at the end of each, and great advice about hyperlinks." You are very welcome, Barbara. Thanks for stopping in and for sharing your question.
Thanks, Barbara. Glad you stopped by.
So I think that's good. That's it for now. I don't have anything else to share. Jordan and Rob, this is Archangel Inc. Live number 9 signing out. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you folks next time.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Take care.